I was very interested that Alex should have started with that remarkable film, A Bridge Too Far. I remember it well. But if I remember one thing above all else as a politician, it was the general, played, I think, by Dirk Bogarts, at the very end of the film, who said, of course, I always thought it was a bridge too far. And that's very relevant to you, because you haven't won. Out there are a whole range of skeptics who never wanted to see this momentum gathering, who will act in any way they can in order to dull it and indeed reverse it. And so welcome to the game of politics. If you want to survive, you have to know how important you are, and you have to articulate it and stand for it. And I want just to tell you how important you are. In this room, virtually is the leadership of the LEP movement. And the LEP movement is the recreation of a balance in England's economies, representing those who create the wealth and create the investment and create the jobs. And that balance is something quite new, because basically we have lived for decades, a century, with an increasingly dominant bureaucratic allocation of funding to serve the interests of the pressure groups that represent the public sector. What had gone was the motivation that made the economies in the first place in the 18th and 19th centuries. Rebalancing that, not eliminating the enormously important part the public sector plays, but rebalancing it to recognize the essential role of those who create the wealth is what LEPs are for, and you are it. Look around. There's nobody else out there other than what you are doing. So my first thought is to praise, to congratulate, and take a tiny little sort of smug, self-congratulatory role for having identified the role that you could play in No Stone Unturned. But of course, I always remember the headmaster's report. I got them regularly, term after term. Oh yes, a bit of ability there, but could do so much better. And so could you. So let us see how you could do better. First of all, you have proved beyond peradventure that if you are trusted with the local direction of the money that is spent by government, you can do it more effectively and create more jobs. Let's not get into the detailed statistics. This is the fastest growing economy in the Western world. We have more people at work than in the history of our country. We are creating jobs faster in sector after sector. We have a massive skill shortage, and that is something to which you have contributed massively. So why not give you the rest of the cash that's now being spent through local government that you could actually influence? If you do that, if they do that, and the figures are well known, there was something like £60 billion worth of money going through the local authorities. Some 20 billion of it has been allocated through you, and why not the rest? Not only will that get a greater local sensitivity, but it will get the gearing that the Treasury understands if you want to dynamize the economy. So more of the cash that is available through the LEP process. Secondly, you need wider powers. You need powers to involve the Department of Education. You need powers, in my view, to involve the Employment Department, because they are absolutely all at one with what you are trying to achieve. You already have some influence over skills, but you have at the moment no formal responsibilities or involvement in the children coming out of our schools that you, and in your widest sense, public and private sector, will have to provide the jobs for them to fill. So there are two departments that should be added to the combination with which you work. And there are others, actually. I mean, there's obviously DEFRA and there's energy. We need to combine the Euro funding with the domestic funding. There's no case that I can see for not having those two brought together under one machinery, as opposed to being divided into two different streams of funding. Next, you need a louder voice. You're in the business of staking a claim, making yourselves heard, stamping your tiny foot. Stop being deferential. Take them on and argue the achievements that you've got and organize yourselves in a way that can equate with all the other pressure groups of which my world is made up. I know you don't like it. I know the whole instinct of the private sector is done by whispers, done by nods, we'll look after you, see you on the nights, don't make too much trouble. You never win that way. So you need to have a very coherent, assertive voice about your achievements. The first place you need an assertive voice about your achievements is that the machine that separates you from central government is not fit for purpose. You all know it. You all say it privately. Do something about it. We need to have a correlation of central government officials acting in a locally organized way with which you can talk, and which can take a view about what is good for the local economies you represent in the dialogue with government. There is no such equivalent today. There was. It was called the Regional Offices of Government. It's gone. There is nobody you can talk to who represents central government at an official level. That is a lacuna that needs to be addressed. Next area, competition. Now, it has been said, we heard it, and Alex referred to it, that the opposition party is saying the LEPs are going on. Good. Just one or two changes, old boy. Tinkering around with the frontiers? Oh, my God. You know, 2 years of internecine warfare while they fight it out authority by authority, pressure group by pressure group, while the whole momentum of growth is set on one side, while the personalities of the locality assert their personal vanities in order to gain a little bit more prestige or power. No, I've been through it time and time and time again. That's not to say that if local people want to make adjustments to reflect a sensible economic case, but when I suggested that in my report, not one of you came forward and did it. So it doesn't sound to me as though the hunger for change of the geography is that acute. Have a flexible way of doing it, but do not make it a major governmental review which will gum up the works for 18 months. Much more menacing even than that is the nice-sounding, friendly, tension-reducing thought. We're not going to have competition, you know. You're decent fellows. We'll give you an entitlement. We'll tell you how much you should get of the money. Oh, thank heaven for that. Absolutely wonderful. You must fight that to the death, because if you want to be abolished, just get rid of the competitive element, because that is what you are. That is why you are there, to inject precisely the disciplines that every day you eat, breathe, and dream, the competitive process of investment, initiative, new ideas, choice, comparability. Don't think that this business of getting rid of competition is some sort of, you know, nice, easy concept to improve things. That is the local authority agenda. That's what they're used to, that's what they like, because then they know that it's business as usual, the money will keep flowing, and there's no hassle. You are there to be part of a hassle. That is why the quality that you are producing is a factor in the judgment as to how much you get. Take out that factor of comparability, of excellence, and what is the point of you? Why not just make you another branch of local government, doing what local government, I was going to say, has been doing, but has not been doing for centuries? It is the corrective mechanism of competition and choice that you contribute. And if you want to see that go, then we might as well go back to where we were. But so the suggestion that it's going to just be every year you'll be told how much and how much simpler it will be, that is the argument of the bureaucrat, of the Whitehall Functional Department, of the local authorities who like it that way. There's no future for you in that. For just realize that if you want to consolidate the position of the Whitehall spending departments, give them the entitlement argument of how much to allocate to one LEP or another. And then they have all the powers over you, because what other standards can they apply than to do it by some measurement system? Number of people living there, GDP per head, whatever it may be. Whatever they do, it consolidates that power of the spending departments as opposed to what you do, which is to produce specific projects, specific schemes with measurable outputs, and you are judged on the quality of the process. So removing competition is, in my view, a death blow to what this process is all about. And you should expose it and resist it, because otherwise, as I say, you don't have a real input to make. Next point, where I think Alex referred to it, is the missing armies. The great problem of an organization like this, and this refers to a huge raft of British industrial and commercial world, is governments only talk to the best. If you look at all the representative organizations that you are in a position to represent, you are talking about a fraction of the companies that exist. I can see Chris Haskins, who chairs the Humber LEP. I know the figures. 40,000 companies, 2,000 of them are members of the totality of the CBI, the Chamber, the Federation of Small Business, the Engineering Employers Federation, and the Institute of Directors. So a tiny fraction. And those figures are reflected across the country. So if we're really trying to change performance, we've got to find a way through those growth hubs of getting to a much wider audience, a much, much wider audience. It's those missing armies where the great challenges of our inadequate productivity are to be found. And the great strength that you bring is the strength of excellence, which we have got to transmit out into a vast number of companies which at the moment, for whatever reason, do not play a role in it. So the growth hubs are in their infancy. They've now got a certain amount of cash, but there's a cut-off period for some of them. So working out ways in which you can stretch your influence much further and more widely in the future is very important. And it's always worth, I think, remembering that the biggest challenges that we face in this country, the single biggest challenge of all is productivity, 20% behind the Americans and the Germans. In other words, those two countries can stop working on a Thursday evening. We have to go on till Friday evening to keep pace. That's ludicrous for an economy of our sort. And the extra money, wealth that could be generated if we get our productivity standards up to international best is the most exciting vision you can conceive. On the education side, 20% of the kids coming out of our primary schools, by your standards, illiterate and enumerate now, this year. Government figures. Northamptonshire, through their LEP, have secured an agreement whereby literally, I think next week, every failing school in that county, in county ownership, will receive a letter saying, come to this meeting, the game's over, you have to change. And the first steps will be taken to bring that about. That is a LEP that has done that. So the opportunities for you are huge. Very difficult for anyone to argue against what you're saying if you say it coherently and in a language that someone can hear. So perhaps I hope the message that I would give you is that you are the only serious way of rebalancing the English economy at every stage and every part of it in a way that reflects the ingenuity and enterprise of the people involved. You know what is needed. And if you simply stand back and think, what would a prime minister do if they wanted to find out about the strengths of your economies? Where do they go? Who do they ring? You see, there isn't anybody except you. They can go to the local government, but the local government has no depth of knowledge about the wealth-creating process. They can go to the departments of Whitehall, but which one? And each one they go to will explain to them about the problems of that particular department. They certainly will find somebody who will tell them what the transport problem is, or what about the education problem, or whatever, but they will find nobody who can say, this is what this LEP is trying to achieve, and this is the strategy, and we will give you an expert appraisal on it. There is no one to go to except you. So the opportunity for you and the responsibility for you is unprecedented in modern times, and I'm enormously proud to have played some part in helping you to achieve that. Thank you.